Hello everyone, Molton here. Welcome back to another game in our speedrun series, and we have reached the 2200 mark, which is, I would consider, like a lower master level. And we are going with the King's Indian again against the English. So the good thing about the King's Indian is that you can play it against the English, or you can play it against d4 as well. So pawn to d6 in this position. Our opponent goes for e3, d3. So instead of d4, which I think is a much better move, if your opponent plays d3 and doesn't try to challenge the center, then you can immediately try to put your pawn on e5 to grab the space in the center. Now this line is actually pretty good for white. It's quite simple to play, and you do have to be a little bit careful because we do have to deal with this sort of attack on the king side, which is inevitably going to come soon. So we can continue a few ways. We can go knight c6, we can go pawn to c6, we can even go h6 in this position, might also be fine. I'm just gonna go h6 just to stop bishop to g5, even though I don't think bishop g5 wasn't even a threat, but I might just stop it anyway. So here we can go c5 and then put our knight onto the c6 square. This is a pretty good setup to go for, to grab some space in the center. We can also play c6, but this allows b4. We try to play for d5 perhaps. This is another plan. Now I'm not too worried about the d5 square at this point in the game, so I might just go c5 and then develop my knight to the c6 square. It also makes sense because it fits in with the h6 plan a lot better, because now I prevent bishop g5, which would have been a good move after c5, because then he can really target this weakened d5 square. So he's gone for this typical queen and bishop battery, which is very effective against fianchetto setups. I might actually do the same thing myself. After knight c6, I might play bishop e3, queen d7, going for bishop h3 myself. And this is going to be quite dangerous for white to deal with. So let's see what he does. He does exactly the same thing which I did, which is put the king here or not. He goes g4. So he's definitely a lot more ambitious here. He's going for some g5 pawn push pretty early on, which is not a bad idea actually. I mean, makes a lot of sense. So how do I deal with g5? I probably don't want to allow g5, so I probably have to move my knight back. So just preemptively preparing against this g5 pawn push. Maybe bring the knight to c7 and maybe maneuver it back to e6. I also have ideas of f5, which is a very typical plan in the King's Indian to follow through with on my next move. So bishop e6, f5 is an idea. I can also try to trade off this knight on d5. It's also possible. He might be threatening b4 actually after knight d5, so I need to perhaps deal with this threat. So I might play knight c7, bring the knight back into the game at the same time. Capture the knight would force him to recapture with the pawn, which would be good for me because then it would block the bishop on g2 from entering the game afterwards. So that's definitely something I'm going to consider, just taking that knight. He can play g5 in this position as well, but he doesn't go for it. So he's allowing us to capture here. I think we should capture here just to force the pawn to go to this square. I don't think it's good for him to block this diagonal. And now we are free to push through f5, which I think should be good for us. Yeah, I think it should be good for us to play f5 here, because if he goes g5, then we can play f4. I think this is fine. The center is also closed now. If b4, then we can always play b6 and recapture here on c5. That's not really an issue. Yeah, so he goes for g5, which is sort of what I was expecting. But now we close the position with f4. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to open up the position on the king side yet. I'm still sort of trying to work this out, because after this move, yeah, it's not clear how I'm going to open up the king side. Okay, I'll start with the move bishop to g4 at least, because I think this is a good move. And now I'm almost considering to just give him the bishop. I think I can give him the bishop. I don't think he can take it anyway, because after takes these pawns are hanging. So I think my plan in this position should be to target these pawns. Actually, I just realized I missed bishop d3. That would have been a really good move. I just realized. Yeah, bishop d3, bishop e2, bishop takes d3. Yeah, would have been winning actually. Yeah, that was a bit silly to miss that. Although, but I'm not 100% sure. It definitely looked like it was winning. Maybe we can have a look at that afterwards. So now the decision should be to trade bishops or not. I think we should, right? If we don't trade bishops, what do we do? I mean, his bishop is pretty bad, but if we're forced to play our bishop to h5, it's also pretty bad. So I think we should play bishop to h3. Okay, now the plan is to capture here on g5, walk the king to f7, and then switch everything to the h file. So I think this is the plan for now. So we take, I think we should take, force him to get this weak g5 pawn, which we can attack later on. And I'm just going to do this king march. King to f7. Oh, maybe I should have gone rook h8 first, actually. That might have been slightly more accurate. Yeah. Okay, I'm forced to take. Maybe I've played my moves in slightly inaccurate orders, I think. But my plan is still pretty much the same. So I'm just going to play rook h5 and then double rooks. It should still be good for me, I think, because this g5 pawn is very difficult to defend. And also I don't think there's any counterplay on the queen side, at least not at the moment. So he does typical run with the king. King run. But I'm not sure this king run works, because I do have this move. Yeah, I do have this move queen to b5, hitting this pawn, and then also hitting this pawn on b2. So the queen side is not completely safe for white at the moment to run with the king. So we play the move queen to b5. Yeah, now I think black has a clear advantage, because we sort of have an attack on both sides of the board. So we can take this pawn, which I think should be safe to do so. We do have to be careful of, he's probably going to play rook f1 and then swing the rook across the b1 to put pressure on our pawn. So we do have to be careful of that, be very mindful of that. But other than this, the only other option I see is c4 to crack open the position. Yeah, I sort of like c4 more in a way, because after captures check, then his king's forced to go to the back rank, and it actually interferes with his pieces quite a bit. So I don't get any extra material in that variation, but I do keep the initiative going, which I tend to prefer over material anyways. So I might go for this one. Yeah, I'll go for this one, even though I think maybe taking on b2 is probably better. Objectively, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's better just to take the pawn and then bring the queen back and be an extra pawn up. But c4 can't be bad. Yeah, so he actually defends the pawn. Actually, yeah, that's a good move. Yeah, I didn't see this one. This is a good move. So the idea is that he's just sacrificing the pawn. He's going to bring the queen across and pick it up. Just play my rook to c8. He's going to go queen f1. But then can I sack the rook on c3 and then maybe play queen b2 check? Oh, maybe. That doesn't quite work. It almost works. Almost works. I don't think it quite works though. Queen f1, rook takes, pawn takes, check, king takes pawn, and his rook would be attacking my queen. I don't really see a way to continue that attack. Yeah. Otherwise it would be a really good move. It's such a shame it doesn't work. Otherwise it would have been close to winning. But no, he's defending very, very well. He's defending very, very well. So I'll just continue with my original plan. I don't really want to trade queens though. If I trade queens, then get into this end game. Yeah, I don't want to trade queens. Then have to play this end game where he probably win all my pawns. Okay, so we probably should have taken on b2 in hindsight instead of this idea. But it might still be okay. This might still be fine. I'm going to take that pawn. I don't actually see anything wrong with taking it. And then just double rooks. They're just double rooks. So just play rook h4. I don't see any good discovered attacks for him at the moment with the knight. So you can move the knight with check, but I'll just take it with the rook. And then g6 is defended by the knight on e7, so I don't see any threats from the rooks there. If I can force some trade of pieces, that would be good in this position. But I'm not sure how to do this. Okay, get the rook out of the way first. And then, okay, I'm going to go rook h1. That's how I trade off some of the pieces. So rook h1. And my queen's also attacking this rook. So he has to do something about that. The g6 is well defended by my knight, so I don't have to worry about that square. I may have to convert some sort of endgame here, which may be a bit of a pain. Oh, he's taking, he's allowing my rook to enter. I suppose it's okay. Okay, how do I continue? How do I continue from here though? Just improving moves. Just play queen c5, just improve my queen, just see what he does. I mean, I have a extra pawn in a slightly better position. I don't need to force anything in this position, so you don't have to force anything. Your opponent doesn't have any threats. Just keep your advantage and then look for ways to improve your pieces, and then maybe try to improve your initiative by creating some extra threats in the position afterwards. So maybe I go b5, a5, something like this. Just see what he does until he actually has a viable threat. This move, do I have some tactics here? Oh, so I was gonna go rook here to... I think I can play rook here. Oh, let's play rook here. So the idea is that if he takes my rook, I have the move queen takes on f2, and I win an extra piece because I pick up his rook again. So now he probably has to go rook to h2, but then maybe I play rook to g3, put pressure on this pawn. So the best thing you can do in these type of positions is just to tie your opponent up to weaknesses. So one thing you can do is just make sure their pieces are tied down so they can't move them, and that's probably will keep them from annoying you, let's say with rook here or so on. Okay, I just put the rook here so then the queen is forever tied down, and the rook is also tied down to defending the knight, so just make sure his pieces are tied down. And then maybe I have some threats of, like, I don't know, queen e3. Is queen e3 a threat? Might be. Probably is. I mean, it's probably a threat. I can also just win on time because he's really low on time. But I think queen e3 might be winning. Take, take. Knight g4, take. King here. Or maybe not, actually. Yeah, maybe not. Okay, I just play some waiting move, see what he does. Okay, queen there. Okay, now I can take the pawn. Okay, so let's have a quick review over that game. So we had the King's Indian defense, and our opponent played this pawn to d3 move, which, like I said, can be quite dangerous because your opponent's going to start pushing these pawns up on the queen side, so you have to be prepared for that. Your plan should be the same, to create counterplay on the king side. So I was debating whether I should play c6 in this position, and let's say queen c1 here, b4, try to play rook e8 and then d5. But then I thought he's probably just going to play b5, and we get some position like this where he starts trading off everything, and it feels a little bit more open on the queen side, and it might be a little bit easier for him to play this position. So that's why I opted for this move, pawn to c5 instead. Idea being I stopped b4 and I wanted to play knight to c6, and I just get a little bit more control over the center. That's why I went for this. This was a surprising move though, pawn to g4. Going for pawn to g5. I thought it was not a bad move. It's just a little bit unexpected. I thought he would just go king h2. And here I thought maybe he would go g5, try to force me to play h5 and get this sort of blockade of the pawns on the king side, where I think this pawn structure is actually pretty good for white, because if I ever try to break it or challenge it with f6, he can always take, and then he has this g5 square for his pieces. So I thought this was an interesting option. I might actually have just taken that pawn if he ever played g5. Knight d5 I was quite happy with, because knight c7, and this one I was quite happy with to just take the knight, but because then I could play f5. So f5, g5, but position is still fairly balanced here. I thought at some point, yeah, he'll play b4, but I'll play b6, something like this, and maybe he'll try to use the open b file to bring his pieces in, but I mean, I just keep my bishop here on b7. Okay, bishop g4. So here I thought, yeah, maybe I should have just played bishop e2. Yeah, I missed this move because I played this going for this move, and I only saw knight takes bishop and queen takes. Completely forgot about this bishop to e2 move, which would have been good. But okay, this one is okay as well. So this plan of trying to win the pawn, I believe, is the correct one. He should have traded queens here. I think he should have gone queen g4 perhaps, because even if he does lose this pawn on g5, it's still not easy for black to win. And after the move pawn to b4, white can create a lot of counterplay on the queen side with like rook b1, since I've already traded off my light squared bishop in this position. So he probably should have gone for that. Whereas if you keep the queens on, it can be a little bit dangerous. Now, which one is better, queen takes b2 or c4 here? So probably queen takes b2, but not by much. So maybe c4 is okay. This is all fine. Okay, so this was actually a blunder in this position. So I missed a tactic in this position. Knight takes d5. So I was considering this tactic, but not in this particular position. And what is the idea here? You play e4 in this position. Wow. So after the move pawn to e4, if white just captures here, then you sack the rook. Oh no, you sack the bishop. And then if they take, then you go queen to b2 check. And if the king captures, we have checkmate to follow here with the move queen to b4. And now they have to give up their queen. Or they can go back and then end up losing the rook, because we just capture here the rook. With mate to follow as well. So that would have been very, very nice actually. Knight takes d5 and then pushing through with e4. If they capture here, then we have the move of just king takes g7. Wow, king takes g7. And after king takes g7, the threat is pawn to e3, queen to b4 check, and also rook to c2 and queen takes b2. There's just too many threats here to deal with. And this, we just played a simple pawn to e3. That would have been a very nice tactic. The knight takes d5. Okay, so instead we have rook h5 and rook takes g5. So this is actually equal. The pawn on g5 wasn't necessarily that special. Still really balanced, but okay, black is definitely more comfortable, of course. And yeah, here I think black is winning, because it's just very hard to find a move for white, and eventually made a mistake in time trouble. So yeah, we missed a very nice tactic though in this game, which was knight takes d5. That would have been a nice way to end the game. But I hope you enjoyed this game, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. Take care.